Hello folks, so here we are in 2022. Happy New Year to everyone. And of course, here to speak about the month of January. If you prefer to read about it, I have posted on my website as well, so please have a look there. Well, let's get into this, yeah. Alright, so what is happening in January? Well, we start the month and the year with the Kalsarp yoga in effect. To bear in mind, it's, according to the classics, there should be no planet where the nodal axis is. So technically speaking, it's a partial Kalsarp yoga, but nonetheless, it has the same impact, according to me. The moon has just come out of its Gandant zone, so we know that there can be some aspect of our life where we feel a bit out of control and where we may need to surrender. The first half of the month we will experience this yoga, and then the moon will break it for the time being during mid-month. And then it goes on and off like that up until April. Yeah. So what else is happening? Venus is retrograde all month, and it makes a conjunction with the Sun and then with Mars, which won't be exact until February. To start the month, there is a lovely new moon on January the 2nd in 18 degrees of Sagittarius in the nakshatra Purvashad at approximately 6 p.m. UTC. The moon and sun are in Venus's nakshatra, and Venus also occupies Sagittarius in sun's nakshatra in Uttarashad. So here we can see some positive developments in relationships. Perhaps a return to an old relationship or a beginning of a new relationship can also be the case. But either way, it's a happy moment because we've got Uranus in trine to the sun and the moon at this time. So we've got that, what we call a sort of a grand trine, right? That 159 aspect happening between sun, moon, Uranus. That's positive. It points to pleasant surprises. We have the dispositor Jupiter of the moon in Aquarius, connecting with Rahu vis-a-vis nakshatra and sign in exact degrees. And Rahu, of course, is still in Venus's sign, so we go back to Venus's condition in retrograde to understand what we can expect at this time, yeah? Venus at this time, through its transit, is Vrigotham, meaning that it's in the same spot in the D1 as it is in the D9 in Sagittarius. It's also Pushkara, implying fulfillment with all matters connected to Venus, whether it's money, whether it's relationship. But there may be something complicated about these matters because, for the obvious reason that Venus is retrograde, there may be also something very unpredictable, like an unpredictable quality. The word, so if you take the retrograde status and you look at it in Sanskrit, actually, if we look at it from that standpoint, the word used is actually vakri. Right? Vakri means what? It means twisted, which I think sometimes, if you want to analyze the impact of a retrograde planet, I think twisted is actually a much more appropriate way to describe it at times. So twisted meaning unorthodox, unpredictable, strange even, right, in its manifestation. And again, we look at the signification of Venus. You can look at the lordship in your own specific chart, but the Garaka, the signification, which for everybody is relationship, it's money, it's sensuous pleasure. And furthermore, not only is it retrograde, but it's close to Pluto. It's aspected by Saturn in the D9. Being in Sagittarius in and of itself could imply some travel at this time. It could be a spiritually motivated trip. It could also be a new education endeavor that you may be thinking about taking at this time, or that you're starting at this time. Rahu is exactly aspecting Mercury at this time as well, showing that we can feel a strong sense of vision for the future. Yeah. Mercury had, in fact, just begun its transit in Capricorn on December the 29th, and it will spend quite a bit of time here since it goes retrograde from January the 14th till February the 3rd. It turns retrograde as it approaches Saturn, but before reaching a conjunction with Saturn. This is a similar pattern that we saw in December with Venus, suggesting that we're not quite ready to make any firm or irreversible decisions quite yet in relationships, in money matters. But in March, our hand will be forced to do so in both areas of life. And if you haven't done so by then, in April, there will be a new path entirely. And so therefore, it's probably best to take this time to reflect and come to some kind of conclusion by March, so that you're not forced to do so in April. At the moment, I would say there's more of a reflective, more of a contemplative mindset in the backdrop, with that Pluto affecting Mercury and Venus, and then Saturn and Capricorn. So till March, we can feel this kind of a contemplative mood. It's a good time to return to matters that are associated with Mercury in your chart and give them another glance. Right? So see what Mercury's lordship is, and then of course as well look at where does Capricorn fall into your chart. There'll be a lot. There's going to be a lot of time to do this because Mercury will actually not enter Aquarius until March the 6th. So I would say it's best at this time not to make any impulsive decisions when a planet is retrograde, especially with those matters connected to its natural significations. So in this case, a Mercury, we're talking about Mercury, it's associated with what? Money, commerce, travel, education, learning new skills, etc. It doesn't mean that these things halt in your life when Mercury goes retrograde, right? Because life will carry on regardless of if the planets are retrograde or not. It just simply means that if you are making new plans during that retrograde cycle, for example with travel, just check and double check everything, right? So you can still travel, but be aware that perhaps there might be slight changes in your plan that you maybe didn't foresee. Sun is moving through Capricorn, approaching a conjunction with Saturn here. On January the 14th, the Sun makes its annual stay in Capricorn till February the 13th. On January the 16th, Mars moves into Sagittarius, and it is approaching Venus in a conjunction now, because Venus is already there. But that conjunction won't go exact until a month later, approximately February the 15th. Mars is in a friendly place in Sagittarius, and stronger here than Venus is. So as Mars moves closer into Sagittarius, as soon as Mars moves into Sagittarius, Moon will move into Gemini, and that is when the Galsar yoga gets broken again for that, that bi-monthly cycle, because every 2 weeks the Moon is going to break that cycle. So the matters connected to Mars and Scorpio can be resolved by now to some extent, right? That blockage will clear up, whatever it was. On January the 17th, we have a full moon in approximately 3 degrees in Cancer, in Pushya, at nearly midnight UTC. Now this full moon is not as friendly as the one in December that we had around mid-December, because this one's aspected by Saturn. In fact, there's a very strong connection to Saturn, as there's a Parivartan happening with Saturn and Moon. Each is in each other's nakshatra, and they're directly across from each other. Yeah. And similar to the mid-December friendlier full moon, there's a close aspect from Mars on the moon. And again, it's the 8th aspect. So we know that there are some sudden, perhaps unexpected changes here. And maybe they're not unexpected as such. Maybe it's a final, sort of a final ending to something that has been ongoing for a while. Yeah. It depends on what Cancer represents to you, whether you have planets there in Pushya. Mercury is also aspecting the full moon, but it's in retrograde state. So whatever you have been contemplating about deeply, again, it's that Capricorn Cancer angle. Depends on what's happening in your chart with that angle, and what Mercury signifies to you. That issue that you've been contemplating is going to get a final jolt, as you will, like sort of there'll be some kind of a culmination, because again, we're talking about a full moon. Yeah. It could be your domestic situation. For example, if your domestic situation is not to your satisfaction, then you could see a breakthrough there. There could be some shifts there. There could be an ending, but then also a beginning, right? Because these things can coincide very quickly when you've got that eighth house aspect of a very strong Mars again. Mercury being close to Saturn can lead to some pessimistic thinking, though, at this time. So you could have difficulties in communicating. You could experience some depression even. You could feel a bit down about not being in control of it. There could also be some critical words that can lead to relationship problems. So be aware of that. Because we're talking about Moon and Saturn, there could be some isolation, there could be coldness in relationship, there could be some rejection in relationship. And because we're talking about a full moon that's connecting with Saturn vis-a-vis nakshatra exchange, look at the lordship of Moon and Saturn in your chart to understand what may get impacted at this time. It can be, however, a productive time for some people to make long-term plans, right? Because both Moon and Saturn are in dignity. So, now the month ends with 4 planets in Capricorn, including Sun, Moon, Mercury, as well as Saturn. It's a good transit for all the dual signs: Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, as well as Capricorn and Aquarius. Yeah. The Kal Sarp Yoga will emerge again on the same day that Venus goes direct on January the 29th. So again, Venus has a very sort of like a intimate connection with the Kal Sarp, because it was changing direction when it started at the end of December as well. So again, it suggests we can see events that manifest that are out of our control, connected to the signification of Venus. It could be finances, it could be relationships, right? So it's that fated element where there is a stronger pull from fate than from free will, and that's obviously not the way most of us like it. Yeah. Now, being that it's the moon that is offsetting this yoga every month, it suggests that we keep going back and forth with these matters due to the waxing and waning nature of the moon. Right? It tries to bring us some clarity, and then again, we go back to that, the shadow side of it, and then sort of it's going on and off for a few months. So there's some confusion, there's some indecision still. The real break for this yoga will happen on April the 24th, 2022, when Mercury moves into Taurus. And by this time, Rahu will have also moved into Aries. Suggesting that, like Mercury is what communication. Yeah, like a lot of problems can get solved and resolved through open and direct communication and honest communication, because often problems get compounded when the communication is lacking. Right? I mean, I'm oversimplifying, obviously, but that's the truth of it. There are many shifts actually taking place in April, as I mentioned before, which we'll talk about later into the year. So by the time April brings those big landscape changes, the matter that came up when Venus returned to Sagittarius at the end of December will be resolved one way or the other. Right? So that's kind of a relief. You won't be kind of going back and forth, and this could possibly be connected to the matter that came up around the November eclipse as well. So now we know that monumental changes can be expected this year, as the first day of the year we're in full throttle with the Kalsarp Yoga. This is also supported by the big shifts taking place in April, when the nodal axis changes to Aries Libra, and then of course at the same time changemaker Rahu will meet the rebellious Uranus. So if you wanted some excitement in your life, then look to where Aries falls in your chart, and it will be coming your way. And both Jupiter and Saturn also change signs, so those are sort of like the slow-moving planets that are making shifts also this year. So a lot of life-changing moments for many people. So on that note, wishing everyone good health and happiness as well. All the best, folks. Cheers.